Hello everybody, Stormy here, and welcome back to another Robo Recall mod deep dive. So today I'm going to be going over all the changes that I've made in the Smooth Locomotion mod version 8. So this mod was created using all the code from version 6 of the mod. I made a couple of big changes in version 7, but then I had to reinstall Windows on my computer, so I lost some of those changes. So we're going to be gradually working back up to what 7 had. We still have climb dashing and we still have the mod menu, but we did lose a little bit of the judder fix on the left hand, which was one of the main fixes of part 7 of the mod. So we're going to be working on getting judder working again over the next couple of days. But today, the biggest addition from the version that was just released of version 8 is speed controls. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the mod folder and show you guys what's new. So go down to Smooth Locomotion 8. Also, you guys will have to show me or tell me in the comments down below. I'm currently using my right monitor, which is 1080p, for this review, so the content isn't stretched out quite as much as normal. My main display is a 21:9 monitor, but I figure for those of you watching on normal devices, probably 16:9 would work better. So just let me know if this is working better for you guys down below. So I've added a couple of new sound effects. We have these great 1, 2, and 3 radio sounds, which I got off of Free Sound. They're very nice. We got a 1, and a 2, and a 3. And those are used for when you click the speed button in the menu. So the biggest part of the mod that we have added thus far in this version is we have remade this menu. Now, we had to move the turn mode and the holsters buttons up further in order to fit this one in, and I think this is as far as we're going to go. We might make another button at some point to toggle automatic refire on and off for some of the mods that I have that emulate real gun movement, where if you lock the slide all the way back, it gets caught and you have to actually rack the slide or hit the slide lock button in order to fully reload your weapon. But for now, I just left that. We'll figure that out later. So we have our turn mode, our holsters, and now this new speed button. So the speed button is a new feature. Some people were asking me on Reddit if there was a possibility of me making a version of the mod with slower walking speed, because they were getting motion sick because of how fast they were walking around. And obviously, Smooth Locomotion is going to be a little bit more nauseous no matter what if you don't have your VR legs, because it's just you're getting more information thrown at you faster versus teleport, where you're just going between static locations. Because you're using a joystick, you know, you're just going to be moving between A and B with your own control rather than it being done linearly. So it's always going to be a little bit more nauseating if you don't have your VR legs, but if I slow down the speed that you do that, it should be a little less nauseating, so more people have access to this mod, which I think is pretty cool. So the speed button has 3 settings. It has slow, normal, and fast, and just clicking on the button will play one of those sound effects, and then it will adjust the acceleration numbers in the Smooth Locomotion mod accordingly. So I went in and I set up this button, which it's just one of these buttons over here. I just dragged it in and then set up the size of it. I don't know why these are always off to the side and not just like right on the button, but whatever. And set it up to be similar in size to these buttons, and then set text over it. You'll see the text looks better on this one than these. I'm going to have to go back and update these because I found a way to make the outlines look much cleaner on this button than on the previous two. And then I added the speed name as well, and the text is based off of a new variable which I called speed button text val. And that took me forever to figure out because I haven't done this in a while and messed with the menus in probably about a month and a half. And so I had forgotten that in order to make the text change based on a variable, you had to switch this over from being a binding or an unbound to a bound text value. But once I figured that out, totally worked fine. And here's the graph for that. So these up here are mostly still the same. I don't think I had to change them too much. I might have gotten rid of some extra code that was here before, but you just have it casting to the player pawn, and then each button does its special thing and then calls an event from the smooth turn pawn. You can see it doing it over there too. So this down here is our new one. So we have our speed button, which is just this gray box. And it is going into a switch on integer. So this is going to, depending on what is being sent in here, it's going to execute a different line of code. So speed integer is set right here. So it's set after we do whatever code we want to do on each execution, which is just setting the text value. And so after you go in and do an executed line of code, then it'll bump this number up one, so it'll do the next one, and then the next one, and then it'll reset it so that it goes back and does the first line again, so it's a loop. And so we're going to start with normal, which is the second option. So you can see speed is going to be default set to 2, so that when it's on normal, by default when you load into a level, if you click the button, it's going to go straight to 3, and then if you click it again, then it's going to go back to 1. Otherwise, it would jump, go back to slow, and then back to normal, and then back to fast, and then start looping, which is not what we want. And then after that, originally I had speed int as what was being sent into this speed toggle to change the speed code down here, but I figured out after some issues that because I'm setting the speed number after changing the text, it was actually taking the number that I set here as what was going into this and not the number that I was executing the code line with. And so that's when I made this second integer variable, which is actually getting sent into there, and that is lined up with the number of the execution line. So that just makes it way easier. Then I'm playing a sound, 1, 2, or 3, depending on which line of code I'm executing. And then these all come into this one single dot, and that just means that no matter which line of code I execute, I want this to happen. And then I'm calling Smooth 2, and I'm saying, hey, run this speed toggle event with the input that I'm giving you. And that is all that has changed on that one. So now we can go back here and go into our blueprints. And I haven't changed the hands here at all this time, but what has changed is a couple of things. So first of all, I went down here and changed this slow-mo toggle. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on a second. There you are. So there's this slow-mo toggle, and the slow-mo toggle event used to just have an end flip-flop on it. And that was fine for when I didn't have any other variables that, or any other events in this blueprint that could change the slow-mo variable. But now that I do have some that can change it, I had to change that to be a branch. And that means that it'll just take the opposite of whatever this is. And that's why these things are crossed. So that is that part. And then we're going to go down here to the new code. So this new code is a copy of the smooth turning toggle, which was very helpful. I was just able to copy and then change some values. So what it's doing, it is being called by the menu. It's being passed this integer value, and then it's going in and activating another switch on integer. So we're going to get either a 0, a 1, or a 2 out of there. And depending on that, we're going to set the speed integer of the player to 0, 1, or 2. Lots of integers here. They're essentially all the same variables. So technically, if I wanted to, I could just pass that number straight through from the from the menu and just do all my stuff with that integer, but it's much easier if I have a local variable to run off of because I don't have to drag it out of this one specific event every time. Once I have that, give it a second to autosave, then it's going to activate this speed change event. So originally, the speed change event over here was actually tied to this switch event, which is when you click the left thumbstick down. But that meant that essentially it was running the same code as if you were sprinting, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted no matter whether you were sprinting or walking, if you change the speed, I want you to be reset to walking and then change the speed to the walking speed. And so I made a separate event for that. So we have this speed change event now, which is going into an integer switch, which is using our local variable that, again, was set over by the mod menu. And it's running in and saying, hey, are we at speed 0, speed 1, or speed 2? So speed 0, goes into slothy fastness, which is a collapsed group of nodes. And these all essentially do the same thing, all three of those ones that you saw before. They're going to set the max walking speed, which is an integer, and they're going to set the max sprinting speed, which is an integer. And both of those integers are used to set the max walking speed of the character movement component, which is over here. It's this guy right here. Depending on whether or not I've clicked the joystick or not. It's essentially all that's doing. And then it's passing out that execution line again. So that one's doing 400 and 600. You can see if we go into normal fastness, it's doing 600 and 1400, so a little bit faster. And then speedy fastness is doing 1600 and 2400, so very, very quick. Then all three of those, again, are being dragged into this input, which is doing force speed change, which is another collapsed bit of node work, and that is setting our max walk speed. So we're turning slow-mo off because slow-mo is what does the sprinting. So we're turning slow-mo off, so it resets our sprint, and then we are setting our walk speed. So the walk speed, again, is a character movement variable, and that just says, hey, when I full tilt the joystick, what is the maximum speed I'm going to be allowed to go? And in this case, we're setting it to max walking speed because we're resetting it back to walking instead of sprinting. So we take our integer, we convert it into a float, so we're taking that, in this case, 600, and we're changing it into a integer, we're changing the integer into a float version of 600, and then we're plugging it in there. Again, max walking speed, though, can be changed depending on what of those three integers we were using. So it could either be like 400, 600, or 1200, I think. And so depending on what button we had clicked, whether we clicked the slow button, the fast button, or the normal button, that will be a different value that goes in there. And that allows us to have the three different walking speeds. And I believe that is it. So I guess I will jump into the editor now and show you guys how it works. So let me load that in real quick. Okay, so here we are in our test map. This is a new one I've created just for this version of the mod. And it's got a big, tall area with a bunch of boxes that you can climb around on. It's got our usual red button that if you shoot with a gun will spawn an enemy in. And then I've got some of these Fortnite weapons in the back just because they're good for throwing around enemies with. And then we've got our spawn in the corner. Now, this is the spawn that you need in order to export. But in order to test here, we're going to go ahead and delete that. And then I'm going to click on our Smooth Loco Rewrite character and drag him into the scene. I'm going to 180 degrees rotate him so he's facing the right direction. And then we're going to set his Y to 0. And just bring him down a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to back him up. So now he's in our scene and we can save. and I can jump into headset and show off to you guys just what is so cool about this version. So let me hit VR preview and wait for it to load in because it'll take a minute. Okay, here we go, and you can already see that normal button down there in the corner. So I'm going to jump into headset real quick here and I'll show you what's new. Alright, and I'm using the new Rift S right now. It originally was my brother's, but it wasn't working on his AMD CPU machine for some reason, so we brought it here to test on my Intel machine, and it's working just fine. So I'm still not sure exactly what's wrong. He's running a 970 in his machine, but it should be fine for most low-end VR stuff at least. So it surprised me that it didn't work. Give me 1 second. I just need to trace out my play space again because it lost it real quick. There we go. And okay, now it should send me back into the game. Yep, okay, there we go. Alright, so I'm in now. And, alright, so you can see our menu is still in the right place, which is great. And if we drop in here, we can walk around at the normal speed, which is the same as always. I think I even lowered it a little bit just to make it a bit more comfortable. But just a little tiny bit so we can climb. We've still got the sound effects in there for that. And we can jump all around this area. Get rid of our rocket hammer here, and let's jump into the menu. So we've got our snap turn, which we can still change back and forth, our holsters, which I'm going to turn off for now, and then we've got our speed, which is currently set to normal. If I hit it, it's going to go to fast, and you can hear that 3 there, but then we hit it again, and you get that slow with the number 1 sound. This is just, you know, I like to add sound effects to back up and make sure that my code is working. And it also sounds cool to have some response to the button being clicked, and then click it again, and it goes back to 2. So if we go too fast, you can see now I'm just zipping around. Woohoo! This gets really nauseating really fast if you don't have your VR legs. And so we can change turn mode to snap again. Boom, fix that issue. There we go. And then if I go ahead, I can actually recenter myself a little bit there. And set it to slow. Now you can see I'm kind of just walking around at a normal little like walk through the parks pace. Not really too scared about anything happening in the city. Just gonna have a nice stroll down the sidewalk. And then if we go back to 2, you can see once again I'm in my like jogger sprint numbers. So that is all that has been added to the new Smooth Locomotion version 8. 8.2. I hope you guys enjoyed everything that you saw in this quick deep dive, and until next time, I'll see you in the field, agents.